You're making the biggest mistake of your life, and frankly, I'm embarrassed to call you my daughter right now. My father said this to me while standing in my kitchen, pointing his finger like I was 12 years old again. My mother just sat there, shaking her head like someone had died. My sister Brooke was texting furiously, probably updating her husband about how I'd officially lost my mind. I just told them I was quitting Hartwell Associates, the investment consulting firm, where I'd been a senior director for 3 years, making $180,000 a year plus bonuses. I was 35, owned a condo in downtown Portland, drove a BMW, and had what everyone called the perfect life. Except I was dying inside every single day. Hi, I'm Natalie Chen Williams, half Chinese, half Irish, which means I got the achievement obsession from both sides. Thanks very much. I've been sitting on this story for almost 2 years now, and tonight I finally feel ready to tell it. Maybe it's the wine. Maybe it's because I just got another text from Brooke asking if I can help out with Mom's birthday gift, now that things are going better for me. Before I go deep into this, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Because I need to know I'm not alone in thinking that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are actually the ones who'll drop you the fastest when you stop being who they need you to be. So there I was, March 15th, 2022, sitting at my kitchen island, trying to explain to my parents why I couldn't do it anymore. Why I couldn't spend another day in meetings about maximizing portfolio efficiency for clients who had more money than small countries. Why I couldn't pretend to care about quarterly projections when I went home every night and cried in my car before walking into my building. But you're successful, my mother kept saying. You're making good money, you have stability. Stability! That word haunted me. Because what they meant was, you're making them proud. You're the daughter they could brag about at parties. Oh, Natalie works in finance. She's doing very well for herself. My dad was pacing now. Do you know how many people would kill for your job? Do you know how hard your mother and I worked so you could have opportunities like this? And there it was. The guilt. The reminder that my success wasn't really mine. It was theirs. It was proof that their sacrifices meant something. My dad had worked 2 jobs to put me through college. My mom had gone back to school at 40 to become a nurse, so they could afford my graduate degree. Every promotion, every raise, every achievement was really their achievement, except I was the one having panic attacks in bathroom stalls. I tried to explain about the startup idea I'd been working on, how I'd been developing an app that connected small businesses with freelance financial consultants, how I'd already built a prototype and had 3 businesses ready to pilot it, how maybe, just maybe, I could build something that actually helped people instead of just making rich people richer. Brooke looked up from her phone for the first time. Wait, you're quitting your 6-figure job to make an app? Natalie, everyone makes apps. Do you know how many apps fail? This is different. No, it's not. My father interrupted. This is you having some kind of midlife crisis and thinking the grass is greener somewhere else. You stick with what works. You don't blow up your life chasing fantasies. The word fantasies hit me like a slap. Because that's what they thought my dreams were. Fantasies, delusions, something to be embarrassed about. I sat there looking at these 3 people who were supposed to know me better than anyone and realized they didn't know me at all. They knew the version of me that made them comfortable. The successful daughter, the responsible sister, the one who always made the right choices. I'm doing this with or without your support, I finally said. The silence in that room was deafening. My mother spoke first. Well, don't expect us to bail you out when this doesn't work. Then Brooke. I just hope you realize how selfish this is. Mom and Dad have been telling everyone about your promotion last year. Now what are they supposed to say? And my father delivered the final blow. If you do this, don't come crying to us when you're broke and have to move back home. Because we won't have room for someone who chose to throw their life away. They left that night, and I haven't been invited to a family gathering since. Not Easter. Not my dad's birthday. Not Thanksgiving. Brooke actually blocked my number after I sent her a text trying to explain my decision. My mother started ending our phone calls with things like, well, I hope you're happy, in a tone that made it clear she hoped I wasn't. But you know what the worst part was? For the first few months, I thought they were right. When I quit Hartwell, my boss James looked at me like I'd told him I was joining a cult. Natalie, you're one of our top performers. Are you sure you're thinking clearly? Is this about the Morrison account? Because we can transfer you. It wasn't about any one thing. It was about everything. It was about sitting in meetings where we'd figure out how to restructure someone's investment portfolio to save them money on taxes, while I knew that same client had fired half their staff the year before. It was about wearing suits that cost more than most people's rent, and pretending that was normal. It was about being really, really good at something that made me feel like a fraud. But leaving was terrifying. You know that feeling when you jump off a diving board, and for a split second you think, oh God, what have I done? That was my entire first month. I moved out of my downtown condo and into a tiny one-bedroom apartment in southeast Portland. Goodbye granite countertops, hello laminate everything. I sold the BMW and bought a used Honda Civic. I started eating rice and beans for dinner most nights and telling myself it was simple living. My savings account got smaller every week. The app development was taking longer than I'd expected. The three businesses that had been so excited about the pilot program suddenly seemed less responsive. One of them pulled out completely, saying they decided to stick with their current system. And through all of this, my family's silence was like a constant background hum of rejection. I'd drive past the restaurant where we used to do birthday dinners and feel sick. I'd see posts on social media of Brooke's kids, my niece and nephew, and realize I was missing their lives. I'd think about calling my mom when I had a bad day, then remember that she'd made it clear my problems were self-inflicted. The loneliness was suffocating. I'd built my whole adult life around work and family, and now I had neither. My work friends were still at Hartwell, and seeing them meant awkward conversations about how my venture was going. My family had written me off as a cautionary tale. There were nights I'd lie in my tiny bedroom and think about calling James to see if they'd take me back. Maybe my parents were right. Maybe stability was more important than happiness. Maybe I was just being selfish and naive. But then something shifted in month 4. I was at a coffee shop in Hawthorne, working on debugging the app's payment system, when I overheard the owner talking to someone about how she couldn't afford to hire a bookkeeper, but was drowning in financial paperwork. She was this badass woman named Sage, who'd opened an independent bookstore during the pandemic. Either the bravest or most foolish person alive, depending on how you looked at it. I introduced myself and offered to help, not through the app, just help. I spent 3 hours that afternoon going through her books, setting up a simple system, and explaining how she could track things moving forward. She tried to pay me. I told her to just let me work from the coffee shop sometimes. But here's what happened. Helping Sage reminded me why I'd wanted to do this in the first place. It wasn't about the money or proving my family wrong. It was about using skills I actually had to help people who actually needed it. Small business owners aren't stupid. They're just overwhelmed. They started restaurants or yoga studios or consulting practices because they were good at cooking or teaching or solving problems. Nobody goes into business because they love managing quarterly tax payments. That's when I realized my app was solving the wrong problem. I'd been trying to build something that connected businesses with freelance consultants, but what they really needed was a system that made financial management simple enough that they could do most of it themselves, with expert help available when things got complicated. So I started over. Again, I threw out 4 months of development and began building something completely different. A financial management platform designed specifically for small businesses, with built-in educational resources and the option to connect with real humans when you got stuck. This is where the story gets interesting, but also where I learned something brutal about family, success, and who's really in your corner when things get hard. Because while I was rebuilding everything from scratch, something else was happening. My family wasn't just ignoring me. They were actively rooting for me to fail. I found out they were rooting for me to fail from the most unexpected source. My 12-year-old nephew, Mason. This was October 2022, about 7 months after I'd quit. I ran into him at the grocery store while Brooke was in another aisle. Mason came running up to me like nothing had changed. Because kids don't understand family politics, thank God. Aunt Nat, Mom said you're poor now, but that it's your own fault, and we're not supposed to feel sorry for you. Out of the mouths of babes, right? But then he said something that made my blood run cold. Dad said you'd probably come crawling back by Christmas, asking for money, and Grandpa said he wouldn't give you any, because you needed to learn your lesson. They weren't just disappointed in me. They were actively hoping I'd fail so they could be right. They were sitting around at family dinners I wasn't invited to, making predictions about my downfall like it was entertainment. I stood there in the cereal aisle, looking at this sweet kid who had no idea he'd just shattered something inside me, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to fail. Not because I wanted to prove them wrong anymore, but because I finally understood that their opinion of me said everything about them and nothing about me. When Brooke found us, she grabbed Mason's hand and walked away without saying a word to me, like I was contagious. That night, I worked until 3 in the morning. The new platform was starting to come together, but I needed beta testers. Real businesses willing to risk their financial management on software built by someone working out of a coffee shop. I started reaching out to every small business owner I could find. Sage was my first real user, obviously. Then I connected with Marcus, who owned a food truck, and Diana, who'd started a graphic design studio. I found people through networking events, social media, random conversations at the farmer's market. I offered the platform for free in exchange for feedback and testimonials. Here's what I didn't expect. Small business owners talk to each other. A lot. When Marcus told another food truck owner that he'd finally understood his cash flow for the first time in 3 years, that person wanted in. When Diana showed her designer friends how she was tracking project profitability, they wanted access too. By December, I had 47 businesses using the platform, 47 people who were telling me it was changing how they ran their companies. But I was also completely broke. The app was free, remember? I was so focused on building something that actually worked that I hadn't figured out how to make money from it. My savings were gone. I was behind on rent. I'd started driving for a delivery service on weekends just to buy groceries. My landlord was understanding but not infinitely patient. I had until January to figure out my financials, or I'd have to move back in with, well, nobody. Actually, since my family had made it clear that bridge was burned. That was the moment when Diana recommended that I begin charging for premium features. She said, "Nat, this platform is worth far more than what most businesses spend on bookkeeping. You're undervaluing yourself." So in January of 2023, I introduced a paid version. The basic features remained free, while advanced reporting and expert consultation were available for $97 per month. My thinking was that if just 20 people chose to upgrade, I'd be able to cover my essential expenses. In that first month alone, 63 people upgraded. By March, there were more than 200 businesses using the platform, with a waiting list of 400 more. Word was spreading faster than I could manage. I hired my first employee, a customer service representative named Alex, who worked remotely from Seattle. In April, a business journalist from Portland Monthly discovered me through one of my users and wrote an article about local entrepreneurs disrupting traditional industries. Although the piece featured 3 startups, somehow I became the central focus. The headline read, "Local Woman Quits Six-Figure Job to Build Solution for Small Businesses." That article was a turning point. Soon I began receiving emails from business owners throughout the Pacific Northwest, then from California, then from all over. I had to bring on developers to help scale the platform, a marketing specialist to take over the social media accounts I had been neglecting, and even a business coach to help me clarify what exactly I was building. By June of 2023, 15 months after I had left Hartwell, there were 847 businesses on the platform, and subscription revenue had reached $63,000 per month. But my family still was not speaking to me. Not even when local news outlets began to cover the story. Not even when the Portland Business Journal included me in their 40 under 40 list. Not even when the mayor's office invited me to speak at a roundtable for small businesses. I thought maybe they hadn't heard about any of it. Portland's not that big, but it's not that small either. Maybe they were just living their lives, and didn't know that their failed sister, was actually doing okay. Then I found out they knew everything. In August, I was at a networking event downtown when I ran into Jenna Walsh, who'd gone to high school with Brooke. She came up to me all excited, talking about how proud my family must be of my success. "Oh, your sister shared that article about you in our mom group. She was saying how she always knew you'd figure it out, how the family was so supportive of you taking the risk." I just stared at her. She said, "What now?" Yeah, she was going on about how brave you were to follow your dreams and how your parents raised you to be independent and entrepreneurial. She seemed really proud. I wanted to vomit. Brooke was taking credit for supporting me. She was rewriting history in real time, turning herself into the loving sister who believed in me from the beginning. My parents were apparently telling people they'd encouraged my entrepreneurial spirit. The same people who'd called my dreams fantasies were now claiming ownership of my success. I drove home from that event shaking with rage. Not just anger, rage. The kind that makes your hands tremble and your vision blur. They'd cut me off completely when they thought I was failing, and now they were stealing credit for my success. But I didn't call them. I didn't confront them. I kept building. September brought the biggest growth month yet. More than 400 new businesses signed up. October was even bigger. I had to hire 6 more people and move out of coffee shops into actual office space. On November 15th, 2023, I received a call from an investment firm in Seattle. It wasn't a loan or a line of credit. They wanted to purchase a stake in my company. They offered me $2.3 million in exchange for 40% ownership. I said yes. The day the money hit my account, I was sitting in my new office looking at a bank balance I'd never imagined possible. I wasn't just financially stable. I was wealthy. Really wealthy. And I'd built it by helping people, not by managing rich people's tax shelters. That afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Nat, it's Brooke. I got your number from Mason's school directory. Can we talk? I miss you." I stared at that message for 20 minutes. After 18 months of complete silence, she missed me. The day my investment deal was announced in the business journal. What a coincidence. I didn't respond. 3 days later, my mom called. "Natalie, honey, I hope you're doing well. I was thinking maybe we could have lunch sometime soon. I know it's been too long." I didn't answer. Then my dad left a voicemail. "Nat, I saw the article about your business. I want you to know how proud I am of what you've built. I always knew you had it in you. Let's get dinner and catch up." He always knew I had it in you? The same man who'd told me I was throwing my life away, who'd said I'd come crawling back for money. That's when I understood something important about revenge. It's not about hurting people who hurt you. That just makes you like them. It's about living so well that their hypocrisy becomes impossible to ignore, even to themselves. I decided to respond to all of them, but not the way they expected. The Saturday after Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving I wasn't invited to. Again, I drove to my parents' house. I knocked on the door wearing the same jeans and sweater I'd been living in for months, driving the same Honda Civic I'd bought when I was broke. My dad opened the door, and his face went through about 5 expressions in 2 seconds. Surprise, guilt, something that might have been shame, then a forced smile. "Natalie, what a surprise." Come in, come in." The whole family was there. Brooke, her husband Derek, the kids. They were eating leftover turkey and playing board games like Norman Rockwell painting. Everyone got very quiet when I walked in. "I got your messages," I said. "All of them." My mom started talking first. "Honey, we've been wanting to reach out for so long, but we didn't want to bother you while you were working so hard." Don't. The word came out harder than I intended, but I was tired of lies. You didn't want to bother me, or you didn't want to be associated with me when you thought I was failing. Silence. Because I've been in the same city this whole time. I've been 20 minutes away. I've been at the same coffee shop most days, working in public, not hiding from anyone. Brooke tried next. "Nat, we were just worried about you. We didn't know how to help. You told people at school that you always supported me. You told Jenna Walsh that you were proud of me for following my dreams." Her face went white. Derek suddenly became very interested in his phone. But when I actually needed support, when I was scared and broke and eating rice for dinner every night, none of you answered my texts. Brooke, you blocked my number. I looked around the room at these people who'd raised me, who'd supposedly loved me, who were now squirming like children caught in a lie. So here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm going to leave now, and you're all going to decide whether you want a real relationship with me, the me who makes mistakes and takes risks, and sometimes fails at things, or if you just want to be connected to my success. I paused at the door. If you want the real thing, you can start by apologizing. Not for doubting my business idea. I get that. But for abandoning me when I needed you most. And for lying about it after. Mason ran up to me as I was leaving. Are you poor now, Aunt Nat? I laughed for the first time in months. I'm not poor. But that's not the most important thing about me. I drove home to my apartment. Not a mansion, not a fancy condo. Just a normal place that I could afford without stress. And opened a bottle of wine. My phone started buzzing around 8 p.m. Text from my mom. You're right, I'm sorry. Can we start over? Then Brooke. I was scared you'd fail and I'd have to watch you get hurt, but I was wrong to cut you off. I'm sorry. Then my dad. I've never been good at admitting when I'm wrong, but I was wrong about everything. Your mother and I want to try again if you'll let us. You know what? I let them try. Not because they deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved a family. And because success isn't just about money or proving people wrong. It's about building a life that feels authentically yours. Relationships included. We had dinner the following week. It was awkward as hell. My mom kept asking about the business until I reminded her that there were other things about me worth discussing. Brooke apologized again, for real this time, and we talked about how to explain the situation to her kids. My dad was the hardest. He kept wanting to give me advice about managing wealth and scaling businesses, like he hadn't spent a year and a half predicting my failure. But eventually, he asked me what it had been like, being so alone when everything was falling apart. Terrifying, I told him, but also clarifying. I learned who I actually am when nobody's watching. The business continued to grow steadily. By the end of the year 2023, we had reached 2,000 clients. I brought on a chief executive officer to handle the daily operations, which allowed me to concentrate on developing the product and shaping the overall strategy. I also purchased a house, not extravagant or overly large, but a place I could truly call my own. I also started speaking at business schools about entrepreneurship, and I always tell students the same thing. Success isn't about proving other people wrong, it's about proving yourself right. And sometimes the biggest risk isn't starting a business. It's staying in a life that doesn't fit you just because other people are comfortable with it. My family and I are good now. Not perfect, but good. Real. They include me in things, and I include them in mine. Mason and my niece Emma know their aunt as someone who builds things, not just someone who makes money. That feels important. But I also learned something I'll never forget. The people who love you conditionally will always reveal themselves eventually. And when they do, you get to choose whether to accept the conditions or change the people. I chose to change the people. If you're watching this and thinking about leaving a job that's slowly killing you, or starting something that matters to you, or disappointing people who claim to love you, I can't tell you it'll work out. But I can tell you that building a life you actually want to live is worth being temporarily hated by people who don't really know you anyway. And if you're watching this because your own family has made their love conditional on your choices, I'm sorry. That's heartbreaking and unfair and not your fault. But it's also not permanent. You get to decide what kind of life you want and who gets to be in it. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had to choose between other people's expectations and your own dreams. I read every comment, and I promise you're not as alone as you feel. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. And subscribe if you want to hear more stories about what happens when ordinary people decide to stop living ordinary lives. I'll see you next week.